This Sunday, December 15th at 1:30 p.m. at All Saints Anglican Church, the Rupertsland Brass Band will be presenting their holiday concert. Consisting of music of Gabrieli, John Rutter, Bach, and more, this is going to be a phenomenal concert that puts the sparkle on the holiday season in a way that only brass instruments can. Adding to the joy and grandeur of the concert, the Rupertsland Brass Band will be joined by All Saints Anglican Church's organist, Dr. Dietrich Bartel. He will be performing a couple of solo organ pieces as well as adding to the texture of the marvelous sounds of brass. The Rupertsland Brass Band was founded in 1997. It consists of 25 to 30 amateur and professional brass players of all ages. The common attraction is a love of music and specifically a love of brass band music. Since their formation in 97, the group has entertained audiences throughout the province while at the same time keeping alive the brass band tradition. And joining me here in the Classic 107 studio to talk about Sunday's concert and all things brass band, I am joined by the Rupertsland Brass Band's director, Darryl Ferguson. Hey, Darryl, nice to have you here.
Thanks, Chris. Nice to see you.
I first want to start the conversation out by talking about you. You and I went to university together out at Brandon, and from what I remember, you came from BC. Did you play in a brass band in BC? How did you get into brass band playing?
So, no, I didn't actually. I didn't get into brass band playing until I actually joined the Rupertsland Brass Band back when I moved back to Winnipeg in the early 2000s. Graham Bruce, the founder of the band, invited me to come out and play, and so I got to sit at the solo cornet desk and play a little there, and I just fell in love with it. It's such a great an avenue to play music that is from different traditions, different styles, all kinds of transcriptions and different things. It's a very different thing from the orchestral and the jazz playing that I was doing a lot of at that time. And so I really fell in love with that playing and the challenges that it presented too, because when we would do pieces that might have been written for, say, a concert band or an orchestra, the cornets would end up having to play the woodwind parts or the violin parts. And so it was a different kind of playing. And additionally, just the warmth and the beauty of a brass band sound, all those conical instruments, is just such a different thing. So it was great, yeah.
The brass band tradition is something I am really fascinated by. It creates some virtuoso players. When I was in the ceremonial guard band in Ottawa, many of the best brass players in the band came up through the Salvation Army system. Can you talk about that brass band tradition in England a bit, and why do you think they create such stellar players?
Well, I think the big piece of it is around community. A lot of the biggest brass bands have youth bands, and so at the earliest ages, young players would sit side by side with these experienced players, and they would be mentored, and they would learn by, through lessons and through their conservatories, but also just by sitting side by side and listening and emulating. So that has been one of the things that we've been trying to do with the Rupertsland Brass Band over the last few years, is try and get more young players involved in it, because we don't have a real system of bringing young players through the brass band. So we have had a number of young players come join the band, as young as grade 7 or 8 over the last few years. I think currently our youngest player is in 10th grade this year, but we have a number of high school students as well. And we're working to just try and instill that love of brass playing and exposure to brass band playing to these young musicians.
Yeah. So there's that sense of community, but you touched on it, I think, a little bit as well. When you're playing violin parts on cornet, it makes you have some pretty serious chops, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It just presents some different demands in your playing. We kind of get used to just having, brass players where we're kind of blowing full out and get the sparkle in the sound. But this really inspires a lot of lyricism and a lot of sensitivity in the playing, right? So we can really work on developing sound and just a warm approach to the instrument.
One of the things, when we think of brass instruments, we think of trumpets, horns, trombones, tubas, etc. But you touched on it a little bit before. Brass bands don't make use of trumpets. They make use of cornets. What's the difference between the two?
So the cornet is a more conical shaped instrument. It's a little bit smaller than your standard B flat or C trumpet. And the bell flares more gradually from the valves. And so what that does is gives it a little bit warmer sound that's a little bit less direct. So yeah, you won't see any trumpets in the band. We'll see a couple different types of cornets. We'll have typical B-flat cornets, but we'll also have an E-flat soprano cornet that plays kind of all the high stuff that maybe you might associate with a piccolo trumpet. We also don't have French horns, so we have alto horns instead, which look like miniature euphoniums or really miniature tubas. And again, has that really nice warm sound to it. We'll have flugelhorns. We have both euphoniums and baritones within the band as well.
It's a wonderful sound. Are cornets easier to play than trumpets, or are they about the same?
There's a lot of similarities. All the fingerings and such are the same. They're not quite as physical, I don't find. You don't have to kind of lean on them quite the same way that you do a big B-flat horn. And so what that does is allows for a little bit more of that virtuosity. And it's a little bit smoother horn to play. The notes kind of connect together a little bit better.
So I want to talk about the concert on Sunday. The program looks fantastic. When I think of brass writing, the words that come to my mind are big, regal, sometimes bombastic. But brass bands are really capable of playing with a wide variety of dynamic contrasts and colors. I was listening to the piece on the program, Hymn for Diana, this morning. It is a stunner. It's beautiful. Is the piece in reference to Diana, Princess of Wales? And can you talk about that piece of it?
Yeah. It was a piece written by Joseph Turin, who is a well-loved composer by brass musicians. He's written chamber works. He's written solo works for a number of brass instruments. And he was inspired to write this piece after the tragic passing of Princess Diana. And so it was a tribute to her legacy and her love of peace and gentleness and such. And so you can hear really that lyricism and that warmth in the sound. But there's also some references to her nationality. There's a moment in the back where you can hear the church bells pealing in the back. We have our percussionist who's kept very busy through some of this. And it's just a really warm and beautiful piece of lyrical music.
And when I was looking at the program, I discovered this composer, William Rimmer. I'd never heard of him before. You're doing his march, help me out here, Punchinello?
Punchinello, yes.
When I was reading about him, he's mostly known for his marches. Is he the John Philip Sousa of brass band?
He kind of is, yeah. He's known as kind of the brass band march king. And so we always try and include a little bit of his writing. He also wrote some solo pieces and things for the brass band. But Punchinello is just a nice, fun little march. I think every brass band concert has to have a march on it.
Absolutely. The band is also performing music by one of my favorite composers, Giovanni Gabrielli. I have never met a brass player that didn't love playing Gabrielli. Why is it so much fun to play on brass instruments?
There's so many things about Gabrielli that are just beautiful. There's such a warmth in the sound, and there's such a lyricism also. We've kind of mentioned that a few times tonight, but that's, I think, a really big thing with our brass bands is that we always are talking about trying to sing through our instruments. And so one of the pieces we're doing is a transcription of a choral piece that will involve the brass band and Dietrich on organ. And so it allows us just to kind of sing through a little bit more. We also love the antiphonal sounds, and it's fun to think back to the early or the late 1500s when Gabrielli had written these for antiphonal choirs in Venice, and the echoing and all the musicianship that's available through that. He really was kind of the person that kickstarted the Baroque era, and so we know how much great brass music came from the Baroque era.
Help me out here. Sacre Symphony, is that how you say it?
Yes.
You and Dietrich arranged it for the group, for organ and brass band. What kinds of things needed to be done?
Dietrich had done an arrangement for this for a choir in three antiphonal groups a number of years ago, and so he had made the suggestion that we had look at incorporating this on the program. And so we kind of looked at the score together, and he said, well, on the organ, between the different things that he can do on the horn, he could probably cover the continuo and an entire antiphonal choir. And so that just kind of left two choirs for us to deal with within the brass band. And so, I don't think it's anything too fancy. We kind of dealt with the genius of Gabrielli and just tried to keep it simple and honest and true to, hopefully what he had intended when he wrote the music.
As it is a Christmas concert, there's going to be some holiday selections on the program. Do you want to mention some of the Christmas selections that the Rupertsland Brass Band are going to be performing?
Sure. So we have a piece from the Salvation Army book called Christmas Joy, which is, of course, just a great medley of Christmas tunes. And, everybody loves a Christmas medley. It's kind of get as many Christmas tunes in there as you can in an interesting way in a short amount of time. We're also doing the Candlelight Carol by John Rutter. And actually, that work is going to be performed twice on the program. Once will be performed as a transcription by the brass band, but also one of our singers, Rick Bowering, he plays euphonium in the band, but he's also a fantastic singer. And so him and Dietrich will be doing that as a vocal, just to kind of compare and contrast some of the different ways that you could set a similar piece of music.
Yeah, absolutely. You are going to be joined by Dr. Dietrich Bartel at the organ. What does it feel like to have the King of Instruments performing with the band?
Oh, it's brilliant. If you haven't had the opportunity to hear Dietrich play that organ at All Saints, you've missed out. It is one of the most beautiful instruments in the city, and the way that it's set up to be able to have the brass band play in front of it, it just feels like you're just enveloped in the sound. And I've had the privilege of getting to play some chamber music at All Saints with Dietrich as well, where the group is kind of set back into where the choir is. And it's just unbelievable when you hear the sound kind of come up and over the way that the architecture is structured there. It's an amazing sound. And Dietrich is such a beautiful player, and he's such a powerful player. It allows us just to kind of breathe and just go, and we're hoping to, maybe not knock the roof off the place, but certainly fill it up.
Yeah. Does it create any challenges? I'm thinking balance, but one of the things, I have a recording of Also Sprach Zarathustra where the organ comes in and it's a full quarter tone flat than the rest of the orchestra. Does that create any challenges with the band?
For sure it does. We don't get a ton of time to rehearse together, and so there's always a few little surprises and little wrinkles that, can pop up. But this is actually the second year that we've done this kind of a concert with Dietrich. We did this for the first time last year. So we dealt with a few of those things last year and kind of have a little bit better idea what to expect this year coming.
I love brass, especially around Christmas. As a brass player yourself, what are you looking forward to most about Sunday's performance?
I think the collaboration is a beautiful thing, right? Just to hear the organ and the brass together, a chance to explore some different repertoire is great. And I think just to be an opportunity to share some beautiful music together, have some community together. We're just really looking forward to it.
It's going to be great. Darryl, this has been so great to see you again and catch up and talk about Sunday's concert with the Rupertsland Brass Band. All the best, and thanks for taking the time to drop by and talk to me today.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. It's been nice chatting.
For our Classic 107 listeners, the Rupertsland Brass Band concert takes place this Sunday, December 15th at 1:30 p.m. at All Saints Anglican Church. For more details, visit rupertslandbrass.ca or go to classic107.com. I've embedded a direct link to the article in the article that's up at classic107.com. Darryl, thanks again.
Thank you so much.